Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Daniel Xu. Dan is the co-founder and CEO of ElementX, one of New Zealand's original AI consultancies, helping enterprises unlock real value from AI. With a PhD in bioengineering and a knack for turning cutting-edge tech into business impact, Dan has been building in AI since long before the GenAI hype. So looking forward to this conversation. Welcome to the pod, Dan.
Cheers, Mike. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. So you started out in bioengineering and mechatronics, which is a word I had to look up and understand what it really meant. What led you from that into building a company at the forefront of applied AI in New Zealand, well before the hype of ChatGPT?
That's an interesting kind of backstory, Mike. Growing up, I come from a family of engineers. My dad was a civil engineer, and I've always really been interested in technology. Mechatronics was the discipline I studied. For those that don't know mechatronics, it's a little bit of a blend of all sorts of engineering. So from building mechanical stuff, electronics, and there's software, obviously. So it's kind of all encompassing discipline. What I really wanted to do, building on top of my studies, was to go and apply those skills. Because you learn so many things at university, but really it's the application that gets me excited.
Awesome. And I suppose, what was it like being one of the first movers into AI in New Zealand? What did that look like for you?
That's takes me back, right? ElementX, the business that I co-founded, this is our 12th year, so I've been around for a while. I remember in the early days there was very little real business use for AI that was beyond kind of like marketing type stuff. People were building kind of gimmicky things that were designed for a one-off, but weren't really using it as part of their product. That was understandable because a lot of the technology was quite immature. I remember one of our first projects, we actually got fooled because we used a computer vision, or what was claimed to be a computer vision technology that we basically built an app that you could take photos and then an AI would tell you what was in your photos. We hooked it up to the service, and what we thought was computer vision was actually just a bunch of people on the other end typing out, manually looking at the photos and typing out what the responses were. So that was the kind of technology we were working with back in the early days. And of course, it's exponentially gotten better and a lot more advanced since.
That sounds like the Wild Wild West for sure. I suppose you wouldn't have had too many people to engage with in New Zealand at that time either. Like, who else was around? What were they building? You would have been one of very few.
Look, I think that was back before the term AI got popular. People would just call it software. And funny thing is, there's actually quite a lot of misconception about what AI is and what it is not. Pretty much everybody I talk to at the moment, what people are calling AI is basically stuff that haven't been built yet. And for things that have been built, they just call it software. So back then, there were a lot of, buzzwords that kind of no longer exist. Like, for example, robotic process automation, RPA. That term used to be thrown around a lot, but it seems like AI agents is the new lexicon.
As you say, the marketers have got hold of the terminology, right? What do you think of people calling AI nowadays, which hasn't been built yet, that will come into existence in the next sort of 18 months or so?
Are you referring to like use cases, mate?
Yeah, use cases. So if RPA is a term that's now been sort of bundled into just AI, like or software, I suppose, what else is coming in the horizon that you see people terming as AI?
Yeah, I think when I look at people building applications on top of AI, I still think that the industry is early. When I think of pure product market fit, where there's real value being created, I kind of put it down to three key areas. You've got your customer service, your chatbot answering questions on a website. You've got the marketers writing marketing content, salespeople using that as part of their prospecting. So that works really well. And then you've got engineers using it for coding assist. So those three use cases are what I think at the moment are really mature or delivering substantial value. Where I'd like to see the industry go is beyond that and far beyond that, predominantly in areas that are unsupervised by a human, so without a human in the loop. But unfortunately, there are a lot of industries that are heavily regulated. I think financial services, legal services, medical practices, where you would need a human to supervise the output of the AI. And I think that's one big opportunity where we can start seeing AI either augmenting those professionals or actually directly handling some of that work.
Makes complete sense. I guess what I'm hearing is it's mainly the call it business knowledge workers. That's where the current sort of use cases are being tackled. But until policy and regulation catch up
Mm.
with the technology, we're not going to see needle moving applications in areas that almost change lives. Like realistically, a lot of what we're seeing today is productivity improvements, but it's not necessarily about making groundbreaking technological advancements.
I think so, but I'm an AI optimist, right? And I feel that there are some really big, gnarly problems that we face as a society, as a species, right? We have climate change, we have social inequality, access to healthcare, education, legal services, justice. There's so many really big problems that I think AI can have a big part in solving.
Are you seeing a lot of organizations that play in those realms working with yourselves or coming to the table to have those discussions about what's possible? Or is it still more of the back end business processes that are mostly interested in what you have to offer at ElementX?
Yeah, I think a combination of both. There's definitely companies doing really good stuff with AI. But where I think we don't want to box AI is we don't want to make it as like you have to be an AI company to build AI. I think every business, every industry can stand to be a little bit more efficient or use AI to enhance and move towards their mission a lot more, especially in the not-for-profit space, especially in the companies that are really pushing towards social impact. I think they can achieve exponentially more impact by jumping on into using AI in their workflows and their tools and all parts of their businesses.
So how do you approach it with business leaders when they come to you? Are you trying to step change them through kind of a maturity cycle, or if they've got a huge vision, you'll run at that vision kind of from day one? Like, what does that look like when you're engaging in consulting with businesses?
Yeah, there's a couple of parts to that, Mike. For us, ElementX, we play more in the implementation space. So our sweet spot around just in terms of our core competencies is around building AI, and that's about building AI, custom AI agents. We partner with a number of really good companies. For example, Misha and Derek from Harnex AI. They do a lot of really good work on consulting. So companies like them do a lot of the use cases, the education, really understanding around where would a company bet on AI that will make a big impact. And then ElementX is our specialization is around building that.
Excellent. And so what sorts of industries are you seeing most interest in at the moment? Are you starting to veer into a verticalized approach, or is it anybody and everyone that's talking to you?
Yeah, we've done work on projects across quite a variety of sectors from insurance to airlines, retail, higher education. So all sorts. I think definitely industries that are at a broad scale where there's a large number of users or customers or very complicated processes. I think those are really like good opportunities for AI to tackle.
Well, yeah, I think the more processes that you have in place, the more ripe you are for disruption for someone new, a new entrant into the market, right? So incumbents really have to look at their own business model and their structures and their distribution models and
Mm.
where am I? What is it? Jeff Bezos who says your margin is my opportunity. It's that concept, right?
That's right. And I remember one of our first customers we worked with, this is a company called Cove Insurance, and they really wanted to reimagine what an insurance business is about. And they set out with a goal of creating a new insurance business without having like a minimum 100 people on your team to run this business. So from day one, they had to really figure out what sort of automation do we need to have in the back end to be able to deliver this product into the market without 100 people.
Amazing. Would you consider that an AI native or AI first approach is when it's almost one person looking at how do I deliver a service with just myself or a team of agents or a couple of people rather than looking at how humans play? And would that be your definition of AI first?
Yeah, I think it's more for me, it's around less so around having, like the whole vibe coding thing going on at the moment. Everybody wants to be a founder and can build a business. I think it's the AI first mindset is more on a technical side around what is the job that need to be done and how can I use AI as part of my design process to really optimize for that.
Makes sense. It's clear with every new technology, we want to throw the new technology at the problem without thinking about what the problem is and how we could actually solve it. And what I'm seeing more and more of is that business owners and founders and leaders are saying, hey, we should solve that problem with AI. And you go, hang on, there's been a technology for 10 years that can solve that problem. Great that you now want to solve it, but AI has basically become the catalyst for businesses to look really hard at their own processes and say, oh, we should actually fix that problem because it's there. And so I find that fascinating that it's kind of been a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of businesses more than anything.
Absolutely. I think there was, we went through peak hype in 2022 when GPT 3.5 came out and ChatGPT came out. Everybody, every business owner, every director of a business was asking, okay, what are we doing with AI? And I think a lot of businesses at the time were just throwing money away at doing proof of concepts or ideas, use cases that really didn't stack up on the business case. So there was actually quite a lot of wastage and dead end projects that never made it into production. I think the numbers are terrible in terms of conversion into production, like less than like 1 in 10 POCs have made it into production during that era. We're obviously getting a lot better now. That obviously triggered a lot of people to move to try AI, but AI is not the lexicon or no, so not the unicorn that can go solve everything. And sometimes we actually advocate for more of a human-centered design as part of our approach, because there are functions, there are certain things that is better for a human to do. For example, like if I'm like having a hard day and I want to have a real empathetic discussion or with a real person, sitting down with a human, that's exponentially better than the best AI agent that can talk to me right now. So there's just some touch points where we want to keep intrinsically human rather than replace with technology.
Yeah, totally agree. And I suppose just back to your point on converting POCs into production ready, beyond, yourselves and others within industry, I guess, maturing in your approach and knowing what value looks like. How do you believe the customer has changed in their approach when they're thinking about implementing AI? As you say, they were throwing a lot of money at the problem and hoping for some form of a result, but how has the customer matured in their approach to thinking about where AI can be applied within their business?
Yes, this is a good point, Mike, because I think big part is around education. And I think a lot of it is as we come down this hype cycle, people's expectations became more realistic. I remember in the early days, everybody we're talking to, and they have very inflated expectations around things like accuracy. People were talking about 99.9% They were comparing AI with Six Sigma. And that's not the kind of parallel analogy we would be comparing as an industry is forming. And so I think a lot of the expectation is now more realistic. So when we talk to customers, we have realistic timelines, realistic deliverables, realistic expectations on when the results or outcomes will be delivered.
Do you see a lot of customers getting rid of their legacy stack in place of custom AI programs that you're building?
Yes and no. Some of our customers I won't name, but just have horrendously legacy systems, systems that are just way beyond their shelf life. But because they're so deeply entrenched in using those systems, it's actually quite difficult to rip out. And in order to do so, actually the thing to go with an AI transformation is very much coupled with change management and then how well you can facilitate change management.
I totally agree. It's a technology and it's pretty incredible at what it can do. It's not going to save the world. Hopefully in some places it might help us, be around for longer as humans and society. But agreed, it's more of a change management process. How are you taking people on that journey? How are you giving them a low barrier to entry to start using the tools without overwhelming them? At the end of the day, AI is a technology, but it's also a mindset shift in how
That's right.
do your work on a day-to-day basis.
I fully agree with that, Mike.
And so, how do you try and step change leaders into that process as part of rolling out these applications? Because I would imagine you don't just hand over the keys to the Ferrari, you also have a training program and enablement program to bring their organization on board as well.
Absolutely. And part of it is around helping our customers adopt AI in a safe way. So making sure that there are appropriate guardrails, if you like. For example, making sure we have source information or any chatbot responses or AI responses grounded in real data, having like other systems evaluate the output of an AI, having filters to make sure we can remove like hate abuse, profanity type content. So there's a lot of that kind of safety and walking that through with our customers and I guess hand holding them through that process.
Yeah, awesome. Get the basics in place. Super important. I suppose turning attention to the New Zealand AI ecosystem, you mentioned, there is a lot of opportunity in highly regulated industries at the moment. What's your read on where we are as a country at the moment in terms of our level of adoption? And we see Microsoft statistics coming out saying 84% of knowledge workers in New Zealand have adopted AI, and I don't know if I buy into that personally, but where do you see the kind of sentiment is on the street from the average business and the country?
To be honest, I feel we are very behind as a country. I think we need to be way further ahead in our AI maturity or adoption as we currently are. Most people that I talk to, besides from the odd conversation or ChatGPT, that's kind of the only exposure to AI, let alone adopting it in their workflows to do more or with less. So I think there's a real mindset change we need to have and really embrace the technology. That said, like New Zealand's not kind of the place to build some of the AI technologies. What I mean by that, if I break down the AI supply chain, all the kind of AI that's been built, think of it as in three layers. You've got infrastructure guys, the guys who build like the hardware, like your NVIDIAs. These guys build like all the data centers. These guys build the heavy grunting hardware. We shouldn't play in that space, New Zealand. That's way too capital expensive. Then layer above, you've got the people who build the models. These are like your OpenAI, your Microsoft, these are Meta. They build the large language models that power a lot of the applications. Again, that's an area that New Zealand should not play in because it's, you need $100 million as a barrier of entry. The very top, and that's the part where I think New Zealand businesses should be playing in, is the application space. And that's when we're leveraging this whole stack and building applications that go direct to end users. That's where a lot of Kiwi businesses should be operating. We're not seeing as much as we'd like at the moment. I think New Zealand's still on that kind of early stages of AI maturity.
So what do you think holds us back in terms of, I totally agree, we're takers of technology at the end of the day. We need to build on what's already been produced overseas and come up with applications specific for the market. But what do you feel is holding us back? Can we point to, government strategy? Can we point to investment and capital? Where do you feel that we're falling down or what's stopping us from moving forward?
That's such a multifaceted question, Mike. In my view, I think there's a couple of things. One is obviously with investment. Two is talent. But three, I think, is part of maybe because New Zealand's a small island, kind of quite isolated from the rest of the world, there's less, I guess, less threat to go and force ourselves to change and to embrace new technologies and really stick our necks out. So I think that part of that, we need to really embrace that. The market is now a global market. We can be disrupted from anywhere. And if we stick our heads in the sand, not really realize that, we're all going to be in trouble.
I agree. And the point that it's global is probably the biggest thing that keeps me awake at night is that you've got other organizations who may not have the proprietary data that they have our companies have about New Zealand or understand the regulatory environment as well, but they'll be able to deliver solutions that'll disrupt our homegrown companies because the user experience will far surpass what we can offer because we're not moving quick enough and developing to meet the parity needs of the market.
Absolutely.
And so you've talked in the past about, regulatory environments, and you mentioned it earlier around the future potentially being great for autonomous agents, but the regs being a big barrier for that. What do you see as the biggest barrier in that space? How are we just not prepared from a global regulatory environment, or is that more of a New Zealand challenge that we face to really harness the power of the technology?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think New Zealand's regulatory framework is nowhere near as intense as, for example, in the EU. What we should really embrace as a country, as part of our competitive advantage, is that we are really great as a sandbox for a lot of things. We're like the perfect test ground for that initial use case in technology because we're very much aligned with the rest of the OECD countries. We have a smallish market that is much easier to contain risk when we're rolling out new things. So I think New Zealand as a country should really jump onto that, really make it easy to set up lots and lots of sandbox environments where we can test all sorts of use cases. Like I'd love to see self-driving cars. I'd love to see drones. I'd love to see robotic manufacturing. I'd love to see a lot of the initial pioneering work being done here.
We have a lot of space for it as well. We're not a very dense country at the end of the day compared to somewhere like the UK. We're same size, but 60 million people.
Yes, that's right.
What about in terms of partnering for innovation? Do you hear a lot from companies overseas wanting to explore what's going on in New Zealand and get involved with yourselves? Or is there a lot of innovation from universities and working with ElementX to explore some of those more cutting edge innovations?
Definitely a lot of innovation coming through the university pipeline. On another hat that I wear, I sit on one of the commercialization parts of the University of Auckland, and the work that's coming through the research side is phenomenal and is world class, no doubt about that. The part that we're missing is the translation of that into industry and the commercialization of that, enabling businesses to leverage off their IP and to build on that, build applications to improve their processes. That is not as advanced as where we'd like to be. Globally, I think in terms of partnerships, you've got a lot of the cloud players, the vendors, the hyperscalers. Most of these businesses are here in New Zealand. They're with a local presence. So it's actually really good for businesses, even like us, ElementX. We partner with a number of the technology providers to deliver the final solution to a customer.
So back to your point on the universities and translating their research into a language that businesses can understand and maximize. Does that come back to your point around capability and talent that organizations in New Zealand can't quite make sense of what the research is?
I think, yeah, there's so many facets of that. I don't have a magic answer to like what the reason why that doesn't translate. Part of it takes a long time to commercialize something. It could be a 10-year process to take something that's from the lab into an off-the-shelf product. And that process needs investment, people, capital, all along that way. And perhaps as a country, we're not walking that whole 10-year journey.
And so if you were to have one, I guess, piece of advice for executives when they think about partnering with the universities, would you be saying to them, think longer term, or would you be saying, come get involved with more universities and let's have a conversation around what you need and what we're doing?
Absolutely, definitely out there. Partner with the universities, work with students. Like recently, we worked with the University of Auckland on a hackathon, and there were a number of different projects that were created with student help. So there's a really strong talent pool that industry can tap into.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We're speaking to a couple of university students at the moment about supporting us with an LLM type project, and they're incredibly smart. They don't come with the call it baggage of an early stage career as well, so they're very willing to kind of dive head first in, which is awesome.
Nice.
Well, hey, really appreciate you taking the time, Dan. Would you be up for a quick fire round to end up the podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. All righty, we'll kick it off. ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Gemini. And I'll just explain because my new thing that I really love with Gemini is the deep research mode. I know all the other tools have a similar offering, but what's really cool with Gemini that I've discovered is I'm a person who loves learning through audio. I listen to a lot of podcasts. When I go out for walks, I listen to a lot of content. I think we have a lot of oversaturation of written content at the moment on the internet. Gemini allows me to deep research a topic and create my own podcasts.
Super cool. Is this through Notebook LM in particular, powered by Gemini or within the Gemini app itself?
Notebook's got that feature, but Gemini just now the app does it as well. So that's type out a question or topic I want to do some analysis on. A couple of minutes later, creates a Google Doc for me, hit the convert to audio button, and now I've got like a pretty entertaining topic that I've based on my interest. So yeah, Gemini all the way at the moment.
Tailored for you. Love it. Would you rather be building and selling into Europe or the US, taking into account their regulatory environment?
Yeah, I think the AI should be a global play. We are productizing one of the products that we've been building, and we are targeting the US market as the ideal market for us. That's more of a decision just based on sheer size and volume of that market.
Fair enough. And what do you think is the most overhyped AI trend at the moment?
It's got to be this like vibe coding trend at the moment where every founder can build a unicorn company with like one employee or something like that. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of potential in low code, no code tools to build technologies. But the thing about building a business is businesses are made of people. Businesses talk to other people, other businesses. We talk to customers. So that whole process of building a business is a lot of it can't be automated. It's very human centric.
Speaking the truth there, sure. Open source models or closed proprietary foundational AI models?
From a customer perspective, I think the answer, like, it doesn't matter. If I'm adopting, whether I want to use Llama or want to use GPT, whichever gives me the better results for the price point that I'm willing to pay. From an industry perspective, I'm a big advocate for open source. Open source levels the playing field. We saw last year when DeepSeek released their models, instantly lifted everybody's performance on the open source communities. And so I think that's a really great way to democratize AI. So yeah, from a developer side, open source all the way.
Wicked. One New Zealand company that's doing great work that might be under wraps that most people won't have heard of.
Yeah, there's so many. One I like to kind of call out is one of our business partners, a company that makes digital avatars, so digital humans that you can talk to, is a company called Unique Digital Humans. And what's really cool is that this company's been around for a long time now too, but they never really went after the hype. They never really went after building a lot of really hypey stuff or like trying to go super too deep tech and trying to build stuff that aren't needed. But instead, they went after use cases now. What are customers' problems? And go build those solutions for those problems. And what's really cool is that they're kind of flying under the radar, but doing a really good job.
Wicked. Yeah, I haven't heard of them. I have to look them up. Sounds very interesting. And what's your number one recommendation for people who are getting started in AI for them to get off the ground?
One is follow Mike's podcast. So subscribe, hit that share button. But otherwise, I just recommend joining the AI Forum. This is the industry body for AI in New Zealand. It will connect you with events, people, resources, newsletters. It's a really good community.
Would second that, and thank you for the shout out. Really appreciate it, Dan. Well, thank you for joining us today as well. And thank you to our listeners. Please subscribe to the channel for weekly updates on episodes that we're releasing and to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Thanks for tuning into the AI Corner.